On my 18th birthday, instead of cake or presents, my stepfather demanded rent. It wasn't surprising for a man like him, who was constantly plotting and looking for ways to enrich himself. He had no idea that the house belonged to me, as it had been left by my true father after his tragic death 6 years earlier. My stepfather, unaware of this, considered me as nothing more than another burden to profit from. But I had an unexpected plan that would transform everything in our household. What I did next was so unexpected that it drastically altered the power dynamic in our home. I chose to remain calm when my stepfather requested rent on my birthday. Instead of becoming angry or frustrated, I took a long breath and nodded. "Give me a few days to gather the money," I informed you. This remark appeared to satisfy him for the time being, and he exited the room with his typical smug grin. Staying cool allowed me the time I needed to perfect my plan without arousing suspicion. I began gathering the essential legal paperwork confirming ownership of the house. My true father was diligent with documentation, so I found the will and property deeds with little difficulty. Each document I retrieved felt like a puzzle piece that fit perfectly into place. I knew I needed to be patient and thorough, making sure every piece of evidence was solid. The better prepared I was, the smoother my plan would go. Meanwhile, I continued with my everyday routine, keeping my objectives disguised. I went to school, spent time with friends, and even completed my household tasks. My days felt like the quiet before the storm. My stepfather had no suspicions since he thought he had me under control. Every day I pretended nothing had changed, but inwardly I was gathering and organizing documents to strengthen my case for the big revelation. Every day I made a stronger case for the final unveiling. My determination grew stronger as I acquired additional documents and put them into a tidy, undeniable collection. By the conclusion of the week, my case was solidified. Everything, including the legal will and deed, pointed to my legitimate ownership of the house. I created copies, stored backups, and even looked up similar examples online. I was ready to confront my stepfather and shift power. I privately talked with a lawyer to learn about my legal rights and how to address the problem. We met at his modest, crowded downtown office. "You've got a strong case here," he remarked, reviewing the records. "Your stepdad doesn't stand a chance." His words were soothing, providing the confidence boost I needed. We meticulously addressed the following stages, ensuring that I had a clear plan for reclaiming what was properly mine. The lawyer affirmed that I was the rightful owner of the house, which gave me confidence. He explained the relevance of each document and helped me rehearse presenting my argument. My stepfather maintained his arrogant ways, completely unaware of the impending storm. Every piece of confidence I acquired from the lawyer's reassurance made the imminent reveal seem more assured. My stepfather may have thought he had all the cards, but I actually had the winning hand. My stepfather, blind to my behavior, continued to behave superior in the house. He would yell instructions, make outrageous demands, and overall behave as if he owned the area. Little did he know that his unbroken reign was coming to an end. His apparent disrespect for everyone save himself just strengthened my determination. I made an effort to stay out of his path so he wouldn't notice my developing confidence or the behind-the-scenes preparations. Every interaction with him strengthened my determination. His nasty statements and dismissive attitude only fueled the anger that was already raging inside of me. The epiphany was getting closer, and I was prepared. I directed that energy toward my strategy, ensuring that every aspect was correct. When everyone else was sleeping, I went over my materials and practiced my speech. I was silently channeling his arrogance into my strength, knowing that the tables would soon turn. I started recording his behaviors and remarks to document any possible threats or abuse. Every demand he gave, every slur he threw at me, was recorded on my phone. I methodically categorized the recordings, naming each one with its date and a brief explanation. This was more than just gathering legal proof. It was about capturing the actual spirit of who he was. Each clip bolstered my resolve, emphasizing why my approach needed to succeed. This proof would be critical to what was to come. I had documented every instance of his mistreatment, resulting in a substantial archive. These recordings corroborated my statements, providing a vivid image to anyone who questioned my tale. They'd be indisputable proof of his actions, and I was prepared to utilize them if he challenged my ownership. Knowing I had such good proof on my side gave me the confidence to proceed with my strategy. I told my best friend about my intentions and sought her support and counsel. We met at our favorite cafe, nestled away in a secluded spot where prying eyes couldn't see. "So, what's the big secret?" she inquired, leaning forward. I took a deep breath and revealed everything: my father's will, my stepfather's demands, and the evidence I had acquired. Her eyes widened with each revelation, and I knew I had made the correct decision by involving her. She suggested having a housewarming party to take my stepfather off guard before making the announcement. "It's perfect," she cried, her enthusiasm infectious. "He won't suspect a thing if it's all framed as a celebration." The notion was excellent. A housewarming celebration would divert his focus and throw him off guard. Furthermore, it was the type of gathering where everyone essential would be present, making the disclosure even more powerful. I couldn't help but smile at the cleverness behind it. I loved the idea and began discreetly preparing the event. Every element from the guest list to the decorations needed to be perfect. I spent my school study periods and work breaks researching party themes and meals. My friend was amazing, assisting me with logistics and making advice. We kept contact covert by using nicknames and codes in our texts. The more we planned, the more delighted we got. It felt like we were carrying out the ultimate theft. I loved the idea and began discreetly preparing the event. Every element from the guest list to the decorations needed to be perfect. I spent my school study periods and work breaks researching party themes and meals. My friend was amazing, assisting me with logistics and making advice. We kept contact covert by using nicknames and codes in our texts. The more we planned, the more delighted we got. It felt like we were carrying out the ultimate theft. My excitement was difficult to conceal, but I made sure my stepfather knew nothing. Every time he entered the room, I concentrated on my usual activities and maintained my calm. My companion and I giggled at how unaware he was. "He really thinks he's still in control," she laughed. I knew I had to hold this pose for a bit longer. As the celebration day approached, it became more difficult to conceal my excitement, but I persevered, reminding myself of the greater picture. The party would be an ideal backdrop for my unexpected reveal. I pictured the situation over and over: the visitors arriving, my stepfather's smug expression, and the moment I'd finally reveal the truth. The atmosphere would be joyous, making the shock even more striking. "He's going to flip," my friend exclaimed, barely containing her own enthusiasm. We kept fine-tuning the arrangements until everything was perfect. Every minor detail felt like a step closer to success. As the party date approached, I cleverly hinted at a great surprise I had planned. Whenever my stepfather was there, I'd casually suggest a forthcoming announcement. "I can't wait for the party. There's going to be a big surprise," I'd tell my friends, loud enough for him to hear. He'd look over, curious, but never really think about what I was saying. The subtle clues kept him on edge, but he was oblivious of my genuine intentions. My stepfather, intrigued but arrogant, disregarded my hints as insignificant. "What could you possibly have up your sleeves? A new dress?" "Big deal," he would say, rolling his eyes. His dismissive attitude just helped me as he remained unaware. Every day I saw him gain confidence in his control over the house. Little did he realize, his arrogance was blinding him to the approaching storm. Everything was coming into place seamlessly. I prepared a speech, ensuring that every word had an effect. I spent hours tweaking each sentence to ensure that it was both concise and impactful. "You've got this," I said to myself, rehearsing in front of the mirror. The trick was to maintain my cool while presenting the facts. My speech, was more than just words. It was a discovery that had the potential to permanently alter the course of our lives. The anticipation grew, and I felt both nervous and excited. Each day drew me closer to the moment when I'd reveal the truth. I maintained my resolution, knowing that the buildup was critical for the final reveal. My heart pounded occasionally, but I reminded myself of the evidence I had accumulated. This mix of emotions fueled me, encouraging me to remain focused and unyielding. My stepfather's avarice blinded him to the coming storm. He went around the home with a sense of arrogance, entirely unaware of my preparations. "Make sure the rent is ready by Friday," he replied, smirking. His preoccupation with money prevented him from perceiving the finer nuances, which would eventually disclose his doom. His ignorance allowed me to finish my preparations without raising suspicions. Everything was ready for the celebration on the day of. The home was adorned, the food was prepared, and I had finished my speech. I took a long breath, hoping to calm my worries. I double-checked everything to ensure no details were neglected. My stepfather assumed it was just another party, but I knew it was far more than that. This was the moment I'd been working toward. Guests arrived and filled the home with noise and laughter. The atmosphere was charged with excitement and curiosity. My friends and family gathered, ignorant of the impending storm. I welcomed everyone cheerfully and kept my secret close to my chest. The sound of mingling voices and clinking glasses energized the celebration. My stepfather, as always, took center stage, playing the kind host while oblivious of what awaited him. My stepfather played the kind host, oblivious to the storm simmering beneath the surface. "Having a good time?" he inquired of a visitor, flashing an unconvincing smile. He strolled through the gathering, shaking hands and making light talk, entirely unaware of the plans I had in store. As he basked in the attention, I held my cool, knowing that the spotlight would shortly turn significantly. I interacted with the visitors, giving more hints about the surprise. "I've got a huge announcement to make," I'd remark with a humorous grin. People's faces lit up with curiosity. "What's the big secret?" someone inquired, but I simply winked and went away. My heart raced with a mix of exhilaration and anxiety. I needed to keep the anticipation alive so that everyone was excitedly awaiting the big reveal. My heart was racing as the moment neared. Every peek at the clock made seconds seem like hours. I took long breaths, attempting to calm myself while maintaining my concentration. The excitement in the room heightened my senses, and I noticed everyone's gaze moved gently toward me. I knew what I was about to do would change everything, and there was no going back now. When it was time, I called everyone into the living room and asked for their attention. Conversations died down, and all eyes went to me. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice firm despite my pounding heart. My stepfather leaned against the wall, arms crossed, as smug as usual. He had no notion that the surprise was a life-changing epiphany. My stepfather smirked, believing he was the center of the party. His hubris was evident as he observed me, undoubtedly expecting me to announce some modest accomplishment. Little did he know that I was going to shatter his sense of control. The room fell silent, the anticipation palpable. I clutched my documents hard, prepared to reveal the truth. His smirk would quickly fade, replaced by horror and disbelief. I began my address by thanking everyone for attending and reminiscing about the house's history. I talked about my early recollections and the times my true father and I spent inside these walls. The guests were taken in and smiled as they heard the anecdotes. My stepfather's attention was slipping, and his smug expression indicated that he thought this was merely a sentimental ramble. Little did he realize that this was simply the start of my unveiling. My stepfather's demeanor changed from boredom to confusion as I explained the house's ownership history. He looked around, possibly looking for clues of a joke. "After my father died, he left the house to me," I explained, watching his eyes narrow. But the room was hushed, with each person hanging on my words. His arrogance began to crumble, showing a sense of discomfort. I hauled out the documentation to back up my assertions, proving that the house was legally mine. I steadily held up the will and property deeds, which were nicely organized in a folder. The entire room leaned in, eager to see the evidence for themselves. My stepfather approached, eyes wide with disbelief. This was not something he could dismiss. His face started to pale. Gasps and murmurs flooded the room as people digested the news. Friends and family exchanged astonished stares, and the murmurs became louder. I could see the gears working in their thoughts as they tried to reconcile what they had just heard. I hoisted the documents higher so that everyone could see the undeniable evidence. It was the moment when everyone there realized what was going on, including my stepfather. My stepfather's face became red with rage and disbelief. His calm composure crumbled as he attempted to comprehend what was going on. "This is ridiculous," he finally exclaimed, his voice quivering with wrath. The guests recoiled slightly, startled by his outburst. He took a step towards me, but the proof in my palm stopped him. His wrath was now combined with tangible fear. I gently recounted the terms of my real dad's will. "Everything is right here in black and white," I explained, tapping the documents. My stepfather's bravado lessened as I chatted more. I explained how my father's wishes were obvious and legally obligatory. His interruptions were overshadowed by the information I delivered. Everyone knew this wasn't an unexpected surprise. My stepfather attempted to interrupt, but I stood firm, offering undeniable facts. "Let me finish," I firmly stated, locking eyes with him. He opened his mouth to protest again, but I continued without stopping. I disclosed other documents, including legal advisories from my counsel. Each page I flicked added weight to my case, drowning out his attempts to disrupt the discourse. The entire room hung on every word I said. The guests were shocked as I displayed more documents, including my lawyer's statement proving my ownership. They leaned in closer, mumbling to themselves as they comprehended what they saw. My stepfather's expression was a combination of desperation and astonishment. He presumably hoped his bullying would overwhelm the facts, but the evidence was clear. Everyone could tell that the tide was shifting. My stepfather's attempts to undermine my assertions simply made him appear more desperate. "This is all fabricated," he screamed, but his voice faltered. I could see doubt creeping into his eyes. The visitors began to whisper among themselves, their sympathies clearly shifting to me. His assertiveness was now a disadvantage, revealing the genuine nature that lay underlying his former charm and arrogance. I called out his plots and manipulations, revealing his actual character. "You've been taking advantage of me and this house for far too long," I stated, my voice firm. I described occasions in which he schemed, lied, and manipulated. The guests were amazed when I revealed the realities of living under his rule. Every word I said alienated him further, demonstrating the extent of his deception. The visitors' sympathy went totally to me. Their eyes grew in understanding and outrage as they saw the full scope of my stepfather's deceit. They murmured amongst themselves, plainly supporting me now. My stepfather looked around and realized that no one was supporting him. His power, which was based on manipulation and deceit, was beginning to disintegrate. This was the tipping point I had carefully planned for. My stepfather's power started to disintegrate. The reality struck him hard. He no longer had the upper hand. His bluster faded into stillness as he realized the support I was receiving. Friends and family members stared at him, their expressions a mix of disbelief and contempt. The proof and the visitors' reactions delivered him a severe blow to his power, from which he could barely recover. He stormed out of the room and slammed the door behind him. The loud bang reverberated throughout the house, yet it did not bother me. I stood firm, holding the paperwork in my palm. He had lost his composure, the final indication of his failure. The visitors followed him with their gaze before returning to me, their faces softened with pity and worry. Guests gathered around me, offering support and validation. "You did the right thing," one of my aunts murmured as she squeezed my shoulder. Their remarks were calming to my nerves, assuring me that I had taken the correct decision. Hugs, words of encouragement, and nods of acceptance filled the space. It was as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders, replaced by a sensation of collective relief. My best friend, who had been taping everything, assured me that we had ample evidence if legal action was required. "Don't worry, we've got him," she said quietly, holding out her phone. Her belief in our plan reflected my own, which strengthened my resolve. If my stepfather were to legally fight my allegations, the video footage would be essential proof. For the time being, knowing that we had everything documented made me feel more comfortable. My lawyer, who was present at the party, contacted me and confirmed that we had a strong case to evict my stepfather if required. "You're in good legal standing," he remarked with a comforting smile. His presence boosted me confidence. He detailed the next stages, making sure I understood the legal procedures that would prevent my stepfather from undermining my ownership. With professional help, my goal seemed more attainable than ever. The mood became joyful as everyone applauded me on standing up for myself. "You were amazing," one of my cousins said, raising a glass to salute. The room was filled with laughter and chatter, in stark contrast to the tension that had existed earlier. The enthusiasm was contagious, and I began to believe that things might finally improve. The party evolved into a celebration of truth, resilience, and newfound freedom. My stepfather's disappearance felt like a weight removed from the house. The suffocating atmosphere he had carried with him had vanished, replaced by lightness and possibilities. I went about the space with a renewed sense of ownership and independence. The walls and furniture all felt altered, as if they recognized the transfer in authority. For the first time in a long time, I truly felt at home. Over the next 3 days, I hired a locksmith to replace all of the locks on the house. It was an important step to ensure that my stepdad couldn't simply walk back in. The locksmith worked quickly and explained each lock's new security features. I watched, feeling relieved with each turn of his instruments. This act strengthened my control over the house, making it a safer environment for me. My stepfather's possessions were packed and set outside, ready for him to retrieve. I solicited the assistance of my best friend, and together we relocated his belongings swiftly. It felt cleansing to let rid of any traces of his power. We handled everything with care, not out of respect for him, but to guarantee that he had no motive to retaliate. The house was gradually becoming mine. I issued a formal legal notice to ensure that he could not return without incurring legal consequences. We sent it certified mail to ensure he received it. The notification was plain and firm, leaving no space for confusion. My lawyer assisted me in drafting the document, which detailed all of the legal reasons why my stepfather was unable to return. Knowing he had read those lines and realized he was out for good brought me a great deal of satisfaction. My best friend assisted me in redecorating the house so that it felt completely my own. We spent hours selecting colors, rearranging furniture, and adding personalized touches. "What do you think of this painting here?" she inquired, holding out a framed photograph. "Perfect," I responded, feeling a sense of belonging with each modification. Creating a space free of my stepfather's influence was a significant step toward achieving serenity and normalcy in my life. The transition felt both emotional and uplifting. Each room we redecorated seemed like a reclaiming of my liberties. The changes in the house mirrored the changes within me. I felt emotions I had never allowed myself to feel previously, like happiness, relief, and empowerment. As we painted walls and changed furniture, I knew that this was the beginning of a new life, one in which I had complete control and could genuinely be myself. Each transition represented a new chapter in my life. A fresh coat of paint represented a new beginning, and new furnishings meant new opportunities. "You're doing great," my best friend stated with a reassuring smile. Even minor modifications, such as replacing old drapes, seemed substantial. As we went on, I felt like I was shedding old, suffocating memories and making room for new, joyful ones. The house was beginning to feel like home again. I reconciled with distant family members who had been estranged due to my stepfather's manipulative behavior. Uncle Tom and Aunt Lisa were the first to contact me, asking me to a family cookout. "We miss you, come join us," read their message. I accepted nervously, missing the familial connections I'd lost over the years. The reunion was heartwarming and full of laughing and anecdotes. It was like retrieving another part of my stolen life. They greeted me with open arms and offered further support and assistance. Aunt Lisa drew me into a strong hug and said, "You're family, and we're here for you." Their compassion and caring helped to build our friendship. My cousins, whom I hadn't seen in years, related their own experiences of being exploited by my stepfather. The warmth of family engulfed me, offering the emotional support I needed to continue forward confidently. My stepfather attempted to challenge my ownership, but his lack of evidence and support damaged his case. But no one purchased it. His meaningless threats and frantic attempts revealed his actual character. He attempted to contact my lawyer, made threats, and even appealed to some distant relatives, creating stories about how unfairly he was being treated. People's trust in me rose as they saw his deceptive practices exposed. The community, seeing his genuine nature, wholeheartedly agreed with me. Neighbors who had previously kept their distance had suddenly come by to offer assistance and pleasant words. "We always knew something was wrong with him," Mrs. Jenkins explained, passing me a platter of cookies. Their support strengthened my resolve and gave me confidence in my attitude. The community's support felt like a strong wave, washing away any remaining misgivings about my conduct. The legal proceedings began easily, securing his permanent exit from my life. My lawyer filed the relevant documentation, and the court promptly found in my favor due to the overwhelming evidence. My stepfather's attempts to delay or appeal were rejected at every stage. "You're almost free," my lawyer told me after each court session. Each ruling brought me closer to restoring my house and my peace of mind. I finally felt the independence and security that my father had envisioned for me. Every day without my stepfather offered new levels of peace. I could stroll around my house without anxiety, sleep without worry, and plan my future without his intrusive presence. The house, which was previously a source of contention, became a haven of safety and possibilities. It's astonishing how much life improved when the shadows were lifted, allowing more light in. On the final day of the court procedures, the judge determined that my stepfather had no legal title to the residence. I sat there, my lawyer beside me, listening to the judge's comments. It felt weird, like a dream had finally come true. My stepfather's face contorted with rage and bewilderment, but it was evident he couldn't do anything about it. The decision was definitive, and the house was clearly mine. The relief was immense as he finally put an end to his control. My shoulders felt relaxed for the first time in years. I hugged my lawyer, who had been a rock through this ordeal. The attitude in the courtroom was lighthearted, almost jubilant. Outside, I took a long breath of fresh air, feeling as if a heavy weight had been lifted off my chest. I was completely liberated. My lawyer delivered me the final piece of evidence, my real father's diary, which chronicled his intentions and affection for me. I took the battered book from him and kept it near. It felt like a treasure, a piece of my father that I could carry on to. Each page was loaded with his handwriting, thoughts, and hopes for my future. It was a concrete link to the man who genuinely loved me. It was a tremendous reminder of why I needed to fight for what was mine. Reading through my father's words gave me a renewed feeling of purpose. I knew he wanted me to feel protected and cherished. His diary was more than just evidence. It demonstrated his trust in me. It grounded me and demonstrated that the battle was worthwhile. With my stepfather out of the picture, I began my journey of healing and regaining my house. The house felt different suddenly, like if it were mine for the first time. I walked through each area, planning how to renovate and personalize it. My friends and family helped me transform the house into a pleasant and comfortable space. It was the beginning of a fresh, brighter chapter. The house no longer carried the weight of the past, but instead represented my resilience and ownership. The transition was exciting and deeply fulfilling. Every corner and crevice seemed to echo the strength I'd discovered within myself. I could finally view the house as the sanctuary it was meant to be, a place for me to create new memories free of my stepfather's shadow. With each room I redecorated, I felt a fresh sense of calm and control. Painting walls, altering furniture, and adding personal touches all helped me feel more in control. It was relaxing to transform each area into a representation of my preferences and style. My friends helped by laughing and joking while we worked. Their presence and support made the procedure more fun, while also enhancing the sense of community I felt. Family and friends continued to assist me reconstruct my life. Aunt Lisa and Uncle Tom made frequent visits, bringing home-cooked meals and encouraging words. My best friend was always there, ready to cheer me up with a hug or a joke. Their unflinching support made me realize that I wasn't alone. We infused fresh life into the house, making it seem like home for the first time. Every day I became stronger and more determined to uphold my father's legacy. I spent hours reading his diary and found inspiration in his words. He had overcome his own challenges with courage and elegance, and I aspired to do the same. The house became a haven of reflection and growth, allowing me to explore my full potential without fear. I was resolved to make my father proud and live the life he envisioned for me. The house, which had previously been a battleground, now stood as a tribute to my strength and determination. It embodied all I had fought for and earned. I enjoyed going through the halls, proud of the voyage I had undertaken. The walls that had before resonated with stress are now filled with laughter and love. This house was no longer a source of contention, but rather a sanctuary, a reminder of my perseverance and unwavering spirit.